From Ed Gein's Beauty Parlor, where the only kind of shampoo they use is Head and Shoulders. This is Kurt Berglund with an APBA Baseball Hall of Fame set league update, preview, and dilemmas to resolve. Thanks for joining me. Because if you think I have a hard time making decisions about APBA rosters, you should see me at a restaurant. Ho, ho, ho. All right, so today we are going to look at the team that I have assembled, at least to this point, from 1961 through 1980. What I did was I took the sheet that APBA provides, folded it a few times, and then reviewed the 5-year blocks of time for each of the stars in the set. I say stars because some are Hall of Famers, some are not quite Hall of Famers, some are never will be Hall of Famers. You choose. Anyway, working on this, and I'm going to tell you where kind of I'm at and some struggles that I'm having with the cards. Not with the design of the cards. I'm not criticizing APBA at all. I'm criticizing my own ability to make a baseball roster, as interesting as that is. So, a few observations before we start. The first thing is that this is probably my favorite block of years in baseball history. I was born in 65. So I know the 70s players very, very well, and many of them were like heroes to me and still are because, you know, that's that first identification that you have when you're a boy. But, and for that reason, it sort of screams to me, especially when you look at the sheer number of cards that are involved in this part of the set, could easily, potentially make a team for the American League and a team for the National League from this block. But you can't. And the reason why is twofold. Number one, there is only one shortstop who is identified as who has his 5-year block in this span of time. And that's Luis Aparicio. Now, what I did, I looked for other likely candidates to be a second shortstop because I'm trying to have a backup at every position because I am playing with injuries in my King of the Hill system. But there are no likely candidates from the 41 to 60 team. Ernie Banks would be really the only one, and he was a first baseman by this point. I thought calling him a shortstop and putting him on this team would be a stretch. So then I looked for players from the 1981 to the present group of players and found two. Alan Trammell began his career as a young player near the end of this block of time. And so did Robin Yount. Robin Yount, of course, was a rookie in 74. Didn't become the amazing player that he would turn out to be until around 1980. He was very good, but he wasn't amazing until he did strength work and so on before the 1980 season. And so he's a good but not great fit for this group, but I moved him there anyway because in terms of years, he's closest to being an established star in this block of time. So there's a shortstop problem. The second potential spot where there's a problem with breaking the team into two leagues is in the pitching area, although there are certainly enough bodies. There may not be enough quality. So what I decided to do, because of the shortstop problem and a little bit because of the pitching, is to create one team from 1961 to 1980. And what I'm going to do now is to go through and show you who they are, who I picked so far, but you can talk me out of some of these selections. I'm going to show you my dilemmas, and then I'm going to show you the players that I did not pick, at least to this point. So let's get down to it. In the event this is your first time joining me for one of these preview shows, a reminder of what I'm doing with the Hall of Fame set. We are moving toward a league that will begin in early 2021. Without the DH, there will be no 3-batter minimum for relief pitchers. There will be no extra inning man on second base. The rosters will be 25 men. We'll be using the basic game for APBA, a king of the hill format. You win and you keep going, but the rotations do stay in place. So we'll talk more about that. 10 wins gets you to the World Series. First 2 teams to 10 wins gets you into the World Series, get the World Series. And we are playing injuries, so the bench is important. I'm also very close to being comfortable with a limit on the number of starts a player can have before he has to sit out, and that would the bonus of that is that it would force me to use the bench. All right, so the team from 1961 to 1980 that we've got so far is this group. First, let's talk about the pitchers. Tom Seaver, Sandy Koufax, Bob Gibson, Juan Marichal, and Jim Palmer make up the rotation. Palmer does not have a Z. There are pitchers I did not select who do have a Z, but he's Jim Palmer, for God's sake. So I'm having a problem with that right there. Right there, the 5th starter. You'll notice that the other starters that I've selected all have Z's. Marichal does, Gibson does, Koufax does, and so does Seaver. My 5th starter, I don't know. Maybe I won't go with him, but right now he's Jim Palmer, for God's sake, so he's in my rotation. Then we have Don Sutton. Now I know what you're going to say. Oh, Sutton's on the team because he was a Brewer, and you know what? You're right. No, you're not right. He's on the team because when I think of incredible pitching, I think Don Sutton. Now, I know Bill James has made a good argument about Bert Blyleven vis-a-vis Don Sutton. But I think Bill's wrong. I think Sutton's better. And his card is certainly nothing to sneeze at here. And I don't know. I'll show you the pitchers I did not select. Palmer and Sutton may be guys that are weaker, but they're A's, for God's sake. I don't know. So we'll come back to them. Then I made the decision to go with 4 relievers. Suter, Gossage, who does not have a Z, nor should he. Fingers, who's an A, interestingly enough. And Eckersley. So there's a 5-man rotation, a 6th man who's a long reliever at this point, and then 4 closers. All right. That is the pitching staff as of this moment. Now I'm going to show you my dilemmas in the position players. So the Palmer / Sutton / do I really go with 4 relievers are all pitching dilemmas. On the hitters here, the position players, we have Bench, Simmons, and Fisk. I'm going with 3 catchers. I go with 3 catchers on these teams, and the reason why is twofold. Number one, if there's an injury, I'm down to not being able to pinch run for these guys, and I don't like that. Second, Bench can do other things, so can Simmons. I just feel more comfortable with 3. Plus, I think all 3 of these guys are legitimate Hall of Famers. And I know there's some question about Simmons. I don't see it. I don't get it. I think he's a no-brainer. So anyway, so those are the catchers. Now we come to my first dilemma. Here's Willie McCovey. Now, Willie McCovey was an incredible player. And his card is incredible. He's got 1s on 11 and 66. He's got a 6 at 22, and he's got a 4 at 33. He's even got a 7 at 44. He's a 294 hitter. He's got 41 dongs on the card. But his problem is sort of my outfield problem. He is not, of course, a wonderful glove at first, and he's unplayable in this league in the outfield, probably. Let's do the rest of the position players, and I'm going to come back and show you my dilemma with him. All right, second base is Joe Morgan. Annoying but great. Rod Carew, who could get time at first base. Here are the shortstops, Aparicio and Yount. The third baseman, Killebrew and Schmidt. Killebrew could also play at first. Not a defensive whiz, but could get time there. And Schmidt, of course. And so that's the infield. Now, so I'm looking at, it's not a DH league. Aparicio's card is such that, I mean, it's okay. But in this league, he's probably going to be pinch hit for. So we have 2 pinch hitting spots. We need a good bench. We have no DH, so there's the pitcher spot, and then we got the shortstops. Yount's card is better. All right, and they are both, well, Aparicio's a 10, Yount's a 9. All right, so the outfield. And this is where McCovey comes back into play. We've got Reggie, who probably won't start. Yastrzemski, who could. Clemente. Aaron. And Mays. Now, I have a hard time thinking that some combination of these 4 won't be in the outfield pretty much every game. So, I could solve that problem by putting either Aaron or Yaz at first base and not playing McCovey. But if I do that, well, and if I do that, then I can save McCovey's roster spot and put someone else on the team, although that's a heck of a card there. And it might not be better than Reggie. Well, it is better than Reggie's card. It just is. Although Reggie's got 0s at 11, 22, 33, and a dong at 66 on the first roll. So they're both wonderful cards. All right, so let's look at the players who are not on the team. The players I cut. Rice. Stargell. And you know, Stargell and McCovey, they're similar players. But McCovey's card is so good, and Stargell's card is wonderful too, but I just chose McCovey to make it this far. Billy Williams, amazing. Dave Winfield is a wonderful player, but in my view, and looking at this card, maybe a little bit less than some of the others. Brock, wonderful player, doesn't really match up with this group. Tony Perez, Brooks Robinson, great that you're a 6, Brooks. Great that you're a 6, but you're not Mike Schmidt and you're not Harmon Killebrew. Santo, wonderful. Maz, cut below. Cepeda, tempting, but no. Torrey's handy. And now we come to the pitchers. And these are the guys that could replace, and one more position player, Frank Robinson, who was my absolute last cut. All right. Now come the pitchers that I cut. So any of these could replace Palmer or Sutton or one of the relievers. Ryan. that W in an all-time great league, I don't know. It kept me from keeping him. He's also not, I mean, I know people get all excited about Ryan and his strikeouts, Ryan and his innings, Ryan and his durability, but in a set like this, I have a hard time with him as an A, and the W keeps him from being, I don't know. Blyleven, talked about him, cut below Sutton. He's a B, he's not an A. Hunter was one of my last cuts. I kept a reliever instead of him, but he's awfully good. Same with Perry. Hunter and Perry, basically the same. Drysdale gets an A, XZ. Carlton is not an A, which I thought was interesting. I don't know. I think he's better than Spahn. Good card, but he's a B and there's no Z. So, Fergie Jenkins, close but no cigar. Phil Necro, same problem as Carlton. Wonderful pitcher. Love him, but a cut below. And then we're back to Ryan. So there's 8 guys here that many of whom could make it, but I decided to go with the 4 relievers that you see: Suter, Gossage, Fingers, and Eckersley, and just have a power bullpen. And I went with Palmer because he's Palmer, and Sutton partly because he's Sutton, but also because Don Sutton was a heck of a big game pitcher. So then we're back here. So I could free up a spot by dumping McCovey, maybe dumping Reggie, but this is where I'm at. So I got these 5 outfielders, and I have McCovey. Now, first base is going to be occupied by Killebrew some of the time, but by one of these 3, Aaron or Yaz or McCovey, the rest of the time. So it's an interesting little conundrum. I don't know if I got it right, and if you'd like to weigh in, certainly feel free to do that. Also on my pitching, feel free to give me your thoughts on that as well. Certainly no other team will have 4 closers. And I don't know if that's going to end up being a problem or not. But that's where we are right now. Thank you so much for joining me. This is the mess that I have created for the team from 1961 to 1980 in the APBA Hall of Fame league that I am setting up and that will begin on my channel in January of 2021. Thanks for joining me. Hope you're having a wonderful holiday. So long, everybody.